The Chicago Bulls go into a game against the Milwaukee Bucks with only Josh Giddey as their only starter on the roster. And despite the Bulls losing the game, there's still a lot of positives to take away, and a lot of things to kind of critique and look at in regards to how the Bulls played, some of the other players that stepped up in this game. We're going to do that on today's episode, as well as Lonzo Ball's return date is now official. We'll talk a little bit about that and the expectations that should or should not be there around his return. And all that plus more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys could follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And so, taking a couple of hours away from the Chicago Bulls' final preseason, the third preseason game. I wish it was the final. Listen, 8 days from today, we'll be talking about actual Chicago Bulls regular season basketball, and I, for one, can't wait. But with all things, and maybe it's just because I'm just a basketball fan, I could watch 10 crackheads play organized basketball because I just love the game that much, right? So when it comes down to it, I still think that this game, even though it's not the Bulls played in ways that I think are just wildly, they're not going to be able to be maintained, those type of things. Like the 59 three-pointers from the Chicago Bulls is absolutely crazy. Like it's ridiculous. You're not going to see the Chicago Bulls shoot that many three-pointers in a regular season. I think also with the Bulls, the change of kind of the level of play is a big thing from that as well. Like the Chicago Bulls they were just getting up shots to get up shots. So you could tell that we saw a lot. Our 54 three-pointers. You tell we were getting a lot of players that were trying to make this team, trying to make their impact on this team. We went 13 of 29 in the first half of this game from three, which is really good. That's really kind of the three-point rate and efficiency you're trying to see from the Chicago Bulls. We went 1 of 15 in the third quarter of the game, right? And you look at the foul discrepancy, free throw shot discrepancy as well. Giannis Antetokounmpo had 16 free throw attempts in this game. The Chicago Bulls as a whole, 24. Like, so it was some very weird officiating done in this game. And, very weird aggression level from the Milwaukee Bucks as well, which in the second half, they just kind of overwhelmed the Chicago Bulls because the Milwaukee Bucks is like they woke up and said, hey, wait a second, we're starters in the NBA, because they still played most of their starters throughout the second half of that game. They eventually pulled them, of course. And the Bulls, when you look at it, they went into the halftime with the lead. And, the Bulls played out there with the starters pretty damn well throughout a large portion of that game. But, eventually the Milwaukee Bucks, who just had more talent, they overwhelmed the Chicago Bulls. And that's what you should expect in a game like this. Like, it just is what it is when it comes down to it. Like, talent matters in the NBA, right? But overall, like, what can we pull away and look at from certain players' performances and things like that? And one that we got to focus on is Adama Sanogo. Like, I don't understand why this was the first game in the preseason that he's played major minutes. 32 minutes played in this game, 32 minutes, 49 seconds, almost 33 minutes in this game that he played. And that's big because, listen, Adama Sanogo is the only other big you have on this roster, basically, other than Jalen Smith, other than Nikola Vucevic. And this is Jalen Smith's second missed game. This should not be the first game we're seeing from Adama Sanogo playing a decent amount of minutes, with Jalen Smith missing 2 games so far. And hopefully this is a wake-up call as well for the coaching staff and Billy Donovan to put Adama Sanogo out there a little bit more. And I tell you what, Adama learned over the course of this game as well. Like that first probably 2 minutes of the first quarter, it didn't look good for Adama Sanogo. I'm not going to lie to you. I looked at that and I said, hey, maybe this is why he hasn't been played, but he adapted and he figured it out over time. And keep in mind, Adama Sanogo was going up against Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, right? It's not like he was going up against G League competition. He was going up against NBA guys with more size and about the same length that he has. And he adapted over the course of the game. And this is why a player like Adama Sanogo, I do want to see play more, because Adama, his physicality is enough. 6 for 10 from the field, right? 1 for 2 from three-point range. He got to the free throw line 4 times for the Chicago Bulls, tied for the most between him, E.J. Liddell, and Kenny Lofton Jr. getting to the free throw line all 4 times in this game. He scored 16 points, 15 rebounds, 3 assists, only fouled 3 times in a game like this, especially where we had 23 fouls in the game, right? 2 turnovers in this game, and he blocked 2 shots. Adama Sanogo showed what he could bring as a backup big, right? I'm not here to say that Adama Sanogo can turn into a starter or anything like that, but I do think that Adama can be a decent backup big in this league, and he continues to show it every time he gets a chance to get on the court. He shows you that. And I just think Adama Sanogo is a guy who should not be down in the G League for the majority of the season. Now, I get it. He could be in the G League because you actually want him to get reps that he may not get at the end. He may just not get those minutes being the third big on a roster. So maybe you want to continue to get those minutes to develop. But overall, I just look at Adama Sanogo and I see a player that through his physicality, through his drive, through all those things, he's ready. And hopefully at some point this coaching staff recognizes it as well. Billy Donovan recognizes it as well. And we start seeing more of him on the court because Adama Sanogo is ready to give some minutes for the Chicago Bulls, I think. So really good game from Adama Sanogo. Got to give him credit for that one as well. Josh Giddey was the only starter to play for the Chicago Bulls today. And like with the rest of the preseason, it's been a mixed bag for Josh Giddey, right? 4 for 9 from the field. He had scored 12 points. He had 5 assists, 3 rebounds in this game, 2 turnovers as well, and he blocked 1 shot. Josh Giddey just, and he said it. The reason why he's out there, he hadn't played basketball since the Olympics. They want to get him as most reps as possible. But here's what I'll say about Giddey. Decent 3 for 4 from three-point range today, which I'll give him a lot of credit for. That was good that he was taking those three-point shots confidently. And maybe he can turn into, like I said, he just needs to be an average three-point shooter really for the rest of his game to kind of round out. But defensively, Josh Giddey ain't good defensively. And again, we knew that coming in, right? The Bulls knew what Josh Giddey was defensively coming into it. Now, Giddey in media day did talk about how he wants to become a two-way player. He wants to give that effort on the defensive side of the ball. And I will say this, even though he isn't having the success on ball, it's not like he's not giving effort. And a lot of defense is effort. So if he keeps giving that effort with his length and stuff, maybe he can turn into a decent defender. But right now, defensively, Josh Giddey's leaving a lot to be desired defensively. And that just kind of is what it is when it comes down to, like, you got to take the good and the bad with the player. And that's why roster construction is important. That's why you're looking at that Bulls projected starting lineup and you're looking at it like, I don't know. But, we'll see what comes along with that one. Julian Phillips was en route to have another big game for the Chicago Bulls. 10 points in 12 minutes. He went 4 of 9 from the field as well. 2 of 6 from three-point range, so not really shooting the 3-ball like we saw him do before. He had 2 rebounds as well in this game. But he went down with a rib contusion. Now, contusion can mean a lot of different things. I don't think it's anything serious. It's probably nothing to worry about long-term. The Bulls medical staff knows it's preseason. They're being very protective with their players, and I like the route that they're going with it. But I think if Julian Phillips was here in the second half of the game, the second half would have looked a lot better. Like, Julian Phillips so far through preseason, and I want to keep everything that we're talking about here, of course, it's through the preseason lens. So, take that for what you will. I'm not trying to make any hardline takes based off preseason basketball, but he's trying to see what the kind of the routes players are going, right? What the mentality of them is. How have they worked on certain aspects of their individual games? And Julian Phillips seems like he's worked the most out of the guys that we wanted to see. Now, Dalen Terry as well continues to be a player that's being effective in areas, right? And that's what I wanted. I won't say what anybody else wants, but that's what I was always looking at from Dalen Terry, is looking at how can he make an impact in some way every time he gets into the game. Shooting hasn't been it so far. He's 1 of 6 from the field, 0 of 3 from three-point range in this game, but he did have 5 assists, and those assists came with him reading the defense pretty damn well. 2 rebounds, 1 block shot as well. And Dalen Terry continues to be a player that now looks like he can be on the basketball court, and let's see how he continues to grow and develop after that, right? And then we got to see a lot of the guys that we just haven't seen very much of or any of in a lot of instances in preseason so far, right? We got to see E.J. Liddell. And E.J. Liddell had some plays out there. I'll say that he had some plays. And as an energy guy, the 6 rebounds, the 1 steal, 1 assist, 1 block, like he just did some of those Dalen Terry things where he didn't shoot the ball effectively, but he did make some plays. He had a block in this game that was it was great to see. The timing on it was great. But again, this is why he's kind of projected to be in the G League rather than actually be on the Chicago Bulls roster. Kenny Lofton Jr. in 15 minutes showed me that physicality you want to see from Kenny Lofton Jr. 8 rebounds in 15 minutes is a really good rate. 1 steal, 2 assists in this game as well. E.J. Liddell is a nice physical presence, and I think that's the biggest thing you're looking at him for. Is there going to be times where he gets into a scoring groove and stuff like that? Yeah, but that's not necessarily what you're looking for him from is a bunch of scoring. But he does a lot of the other things, right? And then three players, because we got to talk about Chris Duarte as well, who had a really good first half. Chris Duarte had a really good first half for a player that's been inefficient. We talked about in that second game, he had 4 minutes. He had more fouls than minutes, right? And more turnovers than minutes when you combine those two things. It was a tale of two halves for Chris Duarte. He played 10 minutes in the first half, went 3 of 4 from the field, 2 of 3 from three-point range, and scored 8 points, which is really good. He also chipped in 1 assist. He had 2 personal fouls in that game, in the first half of the game. And then you flipped it to the second half. When he showed something in the first half of the game and he came into the second half saying, all right, Chris, what can you show us? 1 of 4 from the field, 0 of 3 from three-point range. He scored 2 points in the second half of the game. He had 1 block shot as well. And so it was a mixed bag for Chris Duarte, right? But it was a better game than what we've seen from Chris Duarte in his other preseason appearances. So give him credit for that. He played better, and always when a player plays better than what they've done before, as harshly as I've criticized him, I'm still not a Chris Duarte guy, but he played solidly in this game. He gave us some solid minutes, especially in that first half of this game. Then you get to Matas Buzelis. And Buzelis is the thing to take away from Buzelis this game is, he's going to be a streaky shooter this season. 5 of 13 isn't terrible percentage-wise. It just isn't. Now, it's not great, right? And, it's okay. 3 of 9 from three-point range. I love that he's taking him out there and he's taking him confidently. He still was able to put up 15 points in that as well. He also gave you 2 assists, 2 rebounds as well. Only 1 turnover, but he fouled out in this game, 6 games. He was covering Giannis Antetokounmpo, and it's almost like he took it personally, right? And Billy Donovan and a lot of other people realize that as well. And Billy Donovan saying this about Matas Buzelis. I think that's the best way he can possibly grow because he's not afraid to get into something and fail, come up short, and have to learn and grow. And he says this of Buzelis. He almost takes the approach of, I'm young, I'm going to lean into this. I'm not afraid. Whatever happens, happens. I'm going to learn something. And if you guys have been watching me for a while, you've known that I have said for a while now with Matas Buzelis is I think the best thing for Buzelis is that the times where he fails, because he has the type of mentality that if he fails at doing something, he's going to try to do his damnedest to make sure he doesn't fail the next time he does it, right? He's going to take that personally and use that to add to his game, to adapt, and to try to bring out and be better in the next go. And he also said this, Buzelis out his own mouth saying this. I don't know. I just think of it as another player. When he asked about guarding Giannis Antetokounmpo, I know who he is, of course, but when we step on the court, it's 0-0. So that's how I think about it. He's a tough cover. He's really strong, tall, athletic, does everything on the court, but I'm going to try my best out there and try to compete all the time. And listen, you saw that from Matas Buzelis. Buzelis has no fear, 0 fear. And I love that about a rookie, especially where we've had some rookies that have kind of been more passive, right, at times. And that's not just Patrick Williams. Dalen Terry was that, right? Uncontrolled at times, didn't kind of know what to do out there. Matas Buzelis is a player that knows what he needs to do. It's more so to me about Matas Buzelis' body and the timing of the game catching up, but he knows what he needs to do. If you go out there and look at the possessions where he guarded Giannis Antetokounmpo, it wasn't that he was in bad position. It wasn't that he took the wrong angles. The physicality is the main part of that. And also Giannis Antetokounmpo being a veteran and understanding the intricacies of the game. So Buzelis, even in a game like this, there's a lot of positivity to take away from Matas Buzelis. And always, that's what I love so much about Matas is that he does not back down at all, right? And that is going to I think the thing of why you can bet on whatever the ceiling of Matas Buzelis' potential is. He's the type of player that you can bet on. He's going to get closest to that because of the work that he puts in, the mentality, and how he takes the personal challenge in overcoming his issues, right? And he puts it all on him. He's not one of those guys that is going to be like, oh, well, the coach didn't run 5 plays for me. The coach didn't run he's going to go out there and get it. He's going to try to make an impact in whatever you ask him to do. And I love that about Matas Buzelis. So overall, like I said, there are some positives to take away from this game. Oh, I almost forgot to talk about THC. He got the final roster spot. At this point, if anything else, unless Ernelat Batum completely goes off in the last 2 preseason games, he misses no 3-point shots. I don't see how THC doesn't get that final roster spot. 15 points, 6 rebounds, 4 of 10 from the field, made 2 3-pointers as well, and another big fourth quarter from Talen Horton-Tucker. Just another big fourth quarter from him. And Ernalop Batum started this game. He had a chance to make an impression early. And Ernalop just, I don't know if it's the NBA timing. Maybe it's still the eye. I don't know. Maybe it's the physicality of the game. Batum is just a guy that he got 9 shots up today, 2 of 9 from the field, and 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals. He did some active things out there, right? But overall, THT just seems like he's so far ahead of where Ernalop Batum is right now that it's hard to overlook that. And so I do think THT probably has this final roster spot in the bag. And yeah, man, it just is what it is there. You know, a lot of us saw it. We saw the potential in Ernalop Batum when the Bulls initially signed him. He came out. He had a couple of good hot games initially, but it just seems like he may just not be an NBA player. And listen, that's just the decision that the Bulls coaching staff has to make, and AK and Eversley and those type of guys. And you know, we'll see what they end up doing. But listen, THT is a guy that he's shown a lot. And so because of that, he's probably going to get that final roster spot. But overall, like I said, in this game, some things to take away for sure. From some of the players we wanted to see, some of the players on the back end of the bench. And overall as well, like this team has the chance to be a deep bench. Now, it's not as the quality depth maybe, but you look at a starting 5 that we have in Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams, Nikola Vucevic. Then you look at the bench depth, right? Torrey Craig is getting minutes on this team. Io, Jalen Smith are getting minutes on this team. Modest Bucilis, we just talked about him. And you still got guys like Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, right, who've shown you something. THT, who's shown you something over the course of this season. Adama Sanogo, who can play up to like 60-something games in the NBA level before you have to convert him to a full roster spot. Like, we've seen a lot of quality depth potentially from this team. Now, we got to see it all come together in the right way. But other than that, like I said, so far, solid preseason play and solid growth from some of the guys we wanted to see it in overall. So not mad at that at all. Now, we also got news yesterday, which we dropped an emergency video on, is that Lonzo Ball would officially be making his return to the court Wednesday when the Chicago Bulls take on the Minnesota Timberwolves at home. Love it. Like, and the one thing that I want to keep saying when it comes down to this Lonzo Ball thing is let's keep our let's let what Lonzo do on the court inform our expectations, right? I'm not having any expectations of what Lonzo can do on the court. I have my things that I think are going to be able to adapt early, his basketball IQ and his passing, but we got to let Lonzo tell us that. Like, his body tell him that as well. Like, he's been very good at listening to his body, being in tune there. You know, the Chicago Bulls talked about how COVID was a setback for him, other things, and they're going to be protective over him this season. They just are, right? And that's the right thing. Lonzo Ball is coming back from 2 surgeries that nobody has come back from, period. Nobody in the NBA has come back and made a successful return from the surgeries that Lonzo Ball has. He's breaking new ground every time he checks into a game, every time he enters a game, every minute that he plays is breaking new ground. And so, we got to allow Lonzo to tell us and for him to kind of ebb and flow over the course of the season. But the biggest thing here and the most important thing is that Lonzo Ball is getting back on a basketball court. That is great to see from Lonzo Ball. That is the story, and that is a great story that Lonzo Ball is able to get back on a basketball court. It's great to see, man. That's great. What Lonzo is able to do and what he's been through at 26 years old, and at looking at the reality of that, you got to be realistic to it, man. Lonzo Ball I commend him. My hat's off to him. My prayers up to him. I hope that he has a successful, whatever that version of success looks like. Success looks a lot of different things. But I hope that he has a successful return to the NBA in whatever form and shape that may take. Because Lonzo Ball is a player that loves this game. He loves the game of basketball. And for him to go through what he's gone through over the last 2+ years, and everybody remembers that video in which he talked about having difficulty walking up steps, and you saw the anguish on this man's face when he said that. Because again, this is somebody who loves the game of basketball. And so, like I said, the fact that he has a return date is a huge thing here. And so, whatever Lonzo looks like upon his return, whatever he's able to give, whatever, that looks like for Lonzo Ball, hats off to the man. Because what Lonzo Ball has been through is something that not a lot of people would have been able to weather and go through. It just isn't. And Lonzo's been able to do that at the level he's been able to do it. And it's beautiful to see. It's really beautiful to see. what Lonzo's been able to do. So, I'm excited. I think everybody's excited. I know that the energy in the UC is going to be crazy for that game. I'm glad that he's returning in a home game. And when Lonzo Ball checks into that game, whenever it is, when he checks into that game, all eyes in the basketball world are going to be looking to see what Lonzo Ball can do. Even the people that aren't necessarily the highest on Lonzo Ball in his return or whatever it else, they are going to be watching to see what Lonzo Ball can bring. And I, for one, like I said, hats off to Lonzo. I hope he does play in the final 2 preseason games like he previously predicted. And yeah, we'll see what happens over that. But before I go, I got one last thing that I want to talk to everybody about. And that is that going into the season for the Chicago Bulls, right? What should be the expectations for the team? And, we've talked a lot about this over the course of this preseason between the people that think that this Bulls team can win 40 games, the people that think this team is going to struggle to win 28 games, wherever you sit on the spectrum, right, of this, that this Bulls team, I think what they're showing us is that wasn't just talk that they're invested in the development of their young players. Now, having players like Vooch and Zach LaVine still on the roster, you still want to seemingly win a certain amount of games when you have that talent on this roster, and they're still going to get their opportunities and their shots. But when you look at Billy Donovan, and when you go back and look at how Billy Donovan handled previous preseasons, we didn't even see a lot of the Bulls rookie in preseason games. When you look at the minutes that Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, and Modest Bucelis have played so far this preseason, I think that the Bulls are finally, their actions are matching their words. They are investing into the youth. Now, I would like to see more investment into players like like Adama Sanogo, right? I would love to see him had gotten more minutes in this preseason because we know he's not going to play a lot during the regular season unless there's an injury or something like that, right? But I think that for the players that the Bulls know are going to be in the rotation, we have seen a new investment in it. And Peter Patton as well is as important as anybody in the investment of these young players. And as we go through this season, watch the development of those young guys. And Josh Giddey's 22 years old. He's younger than Dalen Terry. That's crazy to say, right? So the investment in these young guys has been there. It's been evident. And I, for one, it's refreshing because I doubted it, right? I doubted how much that Billy Donovan was going to invest. And now I want to wait and see in the regular season, is that going to stay? Is Julian Phillips going to keep getting 15 to 18 minutes during the regular season, or is Torrey Craig going to be playing 28 minutes and absorb all of that, right? Of course, those things are there, but it seems like the Bulls, as an organization, is finally matching the words that they said to us. And as this goes over the course of the season, we'll see how that develops. But overall, I like where the Bulls seem to be headed. And development is the key thing here, because you want these young guys to step up and be able to give you something. You want to know what you have in these guys, right? The woulda, coulda, shoulda it needs to eliminate the Bulls, right? We need to know what we have in these guys, meaning if they suck, they suck, right? Cool. We got to see them. We saw it out there. We understand it. There's no more of that, hey, well, they play like this, and we're getting to see it at the NBA level. And I love the fact that Modest Bucelis seems like he's not going to play a lot of G League minutes. So we'll see what happens over that. But let's keep investing in these guys. The Modest Bucelis, the Julian Phillips, the Dalen Terrys, the Josh Giddey, who we already knew was going to get a lot invested in him. Let's see how these guys develop. And going into this season, development is the key. I can't wait to see it. But all right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, and that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.